Three.
Good evening and welcome, a very warm welcome, Simon and Emily.
Hi, Maria.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. So, Simon Walker, one of our authors on the Being Fine book, and the wonderfully supportive Emily, partner. And this new phase of interviews, which was a really wonderful idea of Joe's, is to invite the partners of the authors to share also from their perspective of observing, witnessing the writing, the creation of the chapter, and after that as well. So I just want to really welcome you, Emily, and invite you to share, or both of you to say hello first of all, and then invite you to share from your perspective.
We jumped at this chance tonight because Emily's been a very important part of this chapter. Although my mental health, my journey that I started was 12 years ago when I was experiencing, my poor mental health. Emily was with me. If you read the chapter, I'm sure plenty of you have. I was climbing up a mountain, the mountain that I'd gone up to succumb to hypothermia 12 years previous. And it was a sort of a writing off of that and a new chapter that Emily is very much part of. And that's when I was contacted to write for this book. So, yeah, absolutely.
And I think the timing of that was lovely. We were there going up this mountain, and it was so beautiful. It was just a really beautiful day, really, really lovely. And then there was this sort of this call from Joe about the book and this chapter, and a real lovely moment, really, of what I noticed was a real lovely moment of reflection, really, of the sort of synchronicity of this situation, of this offer coming in, this idea coming in from Joe, and actually that moment that we were in at that moment, both going up the mountain and Simon's previous experience of going up this mountain, and how different those contexts were.
And the same came through in the story. My flat that I was living in, the flat doesn't change, the mountain hasn't changed. It's the mindset that's within, and it's a constant. It's not the 12 years ago. It's just a continuing journey, and that's what we're very much taking together now. And it's part of those experiences. Emily's experienced poor mental health before, but it's that shaped us and that's brought us together to a stronger relationship now, moving on. So that's the power of this book. It's fabulous.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I wasn't aware of the post, the 12 years going up the same mountain piece. That's actually very, very powerful. What a different context.
Yeah, it was a lovely moment of just noticing that, and I think after that, the sitting down and the writing of the chapter was very much reflecting on that moment too, and the difference in circumstances, the difference in emotion and feeling, and then getting that down on paper, as it were. We don't put anything on paper these days, do we? It's all kind of on the computer, but just watching Simon formulate that and put it down in this chapter.
It's also, as well, it's important to remember that although I was absolutely honest and open with Emily about my mental health, and she knew exactly what my story was, writing a book, and that's been the really surprising part for me, that reflection and that process of my chapter has brought up an awful lot of not negative emotions for me, but that far on, it's helped me sort of put a line under a lot of things, and sharing that with someone as well has just been really valuable.
Yeah.
And I mean, that goes again in a lot of the chapters, doesn't it?
Yeah.
There seems to be that golden thread running through the chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Emily, what was your experience witnessing Simon initially writing, getting those ideas down for the chapter?
It was lovely to see that sort of unfolding, to see that chapter unfolding, and just not completely reliving, but really unfolding the memories and the emotions of that time, and just getting those down on, on paper, as it were, on a computer, just really feeling into that and letting that all sort of come to mind, be brought out, and then put it down. And I really like Simon's writing style as well. It was lovely to seal that on the, as it were, in the chapter, the sort of real humanity there. And yes, it was very moving to read it too, to recognize where he has been and the man he is now. And there were, for me, glimpses of my own journey in there as well. There's that lovely, I think, aspect about the book. When you read the chapters, you see the common human journey, and I see my own journey with mental health in there as well. That sort of meeting that really difficult challenge of what's going on for us internally, the emotions, the thoughts, and the kind of the brick walls we meet with this sort of with those dark spaces we come to, but coming out the other side too, that hope and that moving forward, that progression, and the gosh, it's character building, isn't it? I mean, it really is. It makes us facing that difficulty and coming through the other side.
And also as well, Maria, that whole process, listening to Emily saying about she really enjoys my writing style, is, and we still, I suffer from, not suffer, but that lack of imposter syndrome. I'm not a writer, I can't write, and that stems from school. And I've shared this with Joe, that because Joe asked me to do a reading at the book launch, and I went, absolutely not. I cannot read in public because I'm dyslexic. And at school in my 5th year, my English teacher wrote, Simon has hidden talents, but I'm damned if I can find them. And
Ouch.
those experiences of reading out loud at school and having a teacher and your fellow students laughing at you has stayed with me to today. So to be now a published author, what a feeling that is, and for having that feedback is just absolutely wonderful.
Oh, really relate to that. Yeah.
And it's I've been chatting to my eldest son today an awful lot about the chapter. He's a head of year at a secondary school, and he's dealing at this moment, he's dealing so much with poor mental health amongst the secondary school students. He's actually taken a copy of the book into their wellbeing library, so he can share that with youngsters there, because that story that all of the authors have had that are sharing, it gives that permission. And I've been absolutely honest with my children through my they didn't know all the details, but it gives that permission, definitely, to be open and honest.
Yeah, really acknowledge your honesty, because when you told me earlier today that your son has taken it to his school, and even the fact that there's a wellbeing section in the school library, like I don't remember that when I was at school.
Yeah, School of Hard Knocks when we went to school.
No, it went like that in the 80s. But the fact that I just really appreciate and really see the courage of you actually sharing that with your children. I think that's actually really powerful. That really impressed on me, actually, when you told me that.
I gave the same gave my chapter to another friend to read, and he was quite shocked. Oh, this is really personal.
Yeah.
And you know, that's the idea. That is the absolute idea, just to lay it out there.
Ideally,
and show that vulnerability.
Ideally, and it takes so much courage.
But also that courage, I don't struggle with it. It's that first step, the coming down off the mountain for me and going to talk to someone. That's the courageous bit for me. And having that bravery to go, do you know what? Life's not good here. I need to talk to someone. And, you know, whether that's a partner, a friend, a doctor, or my black dog, that is absolutely the most courageous time for me. And the first step of recovery. We were chatting a couple of days ago, Maria, weren't we, about creating that space for listening?
We were.
And if you create that space here for listening to yourself as well, it gives you that space just to go, hold on, I just need to reach out and speak to someone. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. I think that it's that first step, you know, when you are in that dark place, to take that first step to speak to someone. I recognize that myself from my own experiences too, that taking that first step to reach out is, you know, it can be the hardest thing anyone does. It's really, really difficult because there's so much going on in that space. There's, you know, there can be shame, there can be lots of discomfort and so much else going on in that space. To take that first step to really reach out and speak to someone takes as much courage as anything else in life. I think that's the biggest challenge, I think.
Yeah, without a doubt.
And then writing things down in retrospect is, in comparison, much easier. Even though I think you can relive it to some extent, rewriting it and touch back on those memories and those feelings of the past. When you are in that space, I think taking that first step is definitely one of the most courageous things anyone can do.
Again, when you're being honest enough to do that, you're honest in the relationship as well. And you know, that's what's made us even stronger, is that openness, and the communication is absolutely key. When Emily and I first met and we started getting together, I said honesty and communication, whatever this is, whatever our relationship is, honesty and communication has got to be at the top of the list. And I didn't know Emily was a life coach at that point, so it wasn't wasted on Emily.
Well, Emily, was that music to your ears?
Oh, totally. Couldn't have said anything better. It's fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. Really, really important. I mean, it has to be the foundations of any relationship, I think. It's so important to have that as a base, and then you can work with anything from that point. And it's not, you know, it kind of sounds quite simple, honesty and communication, but actually I think those things can be really quite challenging and difficult at times. So if we can stick to those, anything's possible. Yes.
When I met Emily, we met at a festival, and I was doing spoon carving workshops and playing the gong. I'm a sound therapist.
Wow,
and Emily
good?
was delivering mindfulness workshops. So it was all kind of meant to be. And I was at the time living off grid in a shepherd's hut, in Devon, and
Wow.
and now I've moved into
A semi in Surrey.
a
What's
semi in
that?
Surrey. So then I've gone from Shepherd's Hut to a semi in Surrey.
Semi.
So,
Sorry. Oh wow.
yeah,
Well, what a very good match. Yeah.
we think
I
so.
really appreciate your. I do really appreciate your conscious communication, actually, and that is absolutely my number one value in my relationship as well with my Simon. Maybe it's a Simon thing. Who knows? Simon says mine here. I really appreciate and I really see how both of your experiences have led you to such a conscious coupledom-ness. How wonderful.
But it's from, and we've often said this, haven't we? We come from so totally different backgrounds,
Right.
and we've taken these paths, but they've got us to exactly the same spot. They've got us to that point, wanting the same things, and it's that vulnerability and being able to open up and talk from the heart that really helps. Really does.
Beautiful.
As it does with your Simon, obviously.
Oh, absolutely. I'm really feeling it. I'm really feeling your heart space. I mean, I can see it. I can see it in your faces. It's absolutely beautiful. It's what I would call a sacred partnership. It's absolutely beautiful to see. I can see it and hear it and feel it. I really do. That's just, I mean, if there's any point to suffering, I often ask myself that, well, at least let my suffering be worth something or mean something.
And that's, there's so many facets to this book, isn't there?
Yeah.
It's in the first instance, it's men showing their vulnerability, but men then being able to show vulnerability and the power of relationship after that vulnerability is so powerful. And that archetypal men have got to be the provider and do this and do that to be an attractive man is so wrong. So wrong. So yeah, this book has so many facets and so many different stories that it can relate to. It's fabulous, and so well done, Joe, for putting this together. I'll keep on saying that to her, but
Me too.
every week that goes on, you just go, oh, this is why it's even more important because and it just keeps on evolving. So here's to the second edition.
Yeah, absolutely.
With partners involved too.
With partners involved, yeah.
Mm.
And Emily, I'd be curious to know. So then, since the book went live, since it was published, was there anything else that you observed and witnessed?
I think one thing that's really struck me through all the Facebook lives and through it going public is just the sort of the sense of kind of rightness about it, and the sense of solidarity amongst the authors. There's a sense of real unity in the stories that have come out, and there's something also very cathartic, I think, in being able to talk about the stories and being able to really bring these things to light. And I think a question that comes out of a lot of the stories for me is a question around, and you've touched on it just a little bit just then, actually, that idea of what is it to be a man? Because we have, we have young men. I've got a son myself who's a teenager. And we see young men going through very, very difficult, trying times, lots of angst, and they're yearning to know what it is to be a man. And these stories are a wonderful collection of experience from, as it were, in a sense, elders in the community who've been there, done that, got the t-shirt, and have experienced the trials and tribulations of life, and have come out the other side with a much stronger sense of what it means to be a man. And it's not what films out of Hollywood are saying. It's not it's not the kind of fairy tale prince on a shining horse. It's not any of those things. And I think there's a really big question there around how do we educate, how do we talk to young men to talk about what it is to be a man, to really be a man, to be connected to emotions and to be able to express them in a manly way, with tenderness and with connection and with communication. So it's been a really interesting journey to see, first of all, the creation, that watching Simon sit down and write this chapter and to really get that out, and the kind of the kind of stickiness that sometimes it was sticky, sometimes it flowed, sometimes it was challenging, and that was cathartic in itself. But then also this seeing this book emerge with all of these different authors and the questions that's brought about too, and the solidarity, the unity in that as well. Yeah,
that's really miraculous said, because an insight that I've just had listening to that is that many of the stories have been the pathways that men have walked according to the conventional conditioning of being a man. You go out, you go to work, you be a good husband, you da-da-da, you da-da-da-da-da-da. And he got lost in that. And there was no listening for him. And there was no space for him. And I just really honor the point that you've made. This is saying this traditional man's pathway actually doesn't work, and it doesn't serve humanity. It doesn't serve our men, and it doesn't serve our families. And we need to talk about a new pathway, boys, young men, and let's create that together. Let's listen. And what you're saying about the man consciously, tenderly sharing his feelings and emotions, his points of view, it's just absolutely spot on. It's an absolutely impeccable conclusion from all of these stories.
And it goes back to what Emily just said there, touched something with me about being the elders, telling the story, because you're saying about finding a new way, but it's because we've forgotten the old way, our old indigenous selves. We were of the land and we were of the tribe and the village. And we've lost that story, ever since the Enclosures Act and the Industrial Revolution. We've been taken off the land and we've lost that connection. And that value of the elders isn't important anymore. So yeah, it's, again, another facet to the book.
Yes, I think there's something there's something in here about, yes, communication, yes, connecting to feeling, but doing it in a masculine way. I think I think as women, and I've noticed this myself, and I've noticed this in friends and acquaintances, this sort of desire for men to speak and be open about their feelings, but that's often in a very female way, and actually it needs to be done with that male energy. And I'm not clear what that looks like because I'm not a man, but it needs to be that unfolding of what is it to be a man in that space, and to come and be connected with emotion, be connected with self, and to be true to oneself in that true male energy. And I think that's something that feels like it's something that's unfolding from these stories. Like you say, the sort of traditional ways of being the provider and mustn't speak and strong and all the rest of it, the way that we've traditionally talked about it, men being men, clearly is not it's not useful in many ways, least of all for men themselves. So it's a curiosity just to see what can unfold from men in society about what that new way of being can be.
I think that's so respectful to give that talking stick or that mantle to men, and to invite that communication to come from masculinity or from men. I don't want to get into labels, but absolutely, because I'm a woman as well. So it's no good me saying, well, how do you feel? And be girly with me and let's do that, because I don't want to feminize him. I'm aware I might be using incorrect labels.
It's tricky, isn't it?
Delete those.
Well, no, we are all
to honor that voice, in the way that he needs to express himself. And I think this point that you make is just so important. And this is the first time I've heard this. And I think this is such a beautiful, important point. Really good.
Fabulous. A good point to end on, maybe.
Point. Ding. It feels pristine. Yeah. So I just really see you, and thank you both. What wonderful points of view that you have given.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure. And we've not, Maria, although we're co-authors of the same book, we've not spent that much time together. So it's nice spending half an hour in your company. So thank you. And again, we feel that wonderful energy from yourselves as well. So
really appreciate that. Yeah, that's why I jumped at this chance. I wanted to meet you both too. So I really appreciate that. And wonderful technology that has enabled that.
Yeah,
and
amazing, isn't it?
Yes, I find it still slightly scary, but embracing the technology as much as we can.
Well, certainly from living off grid in a shepherd's hut in Devon to this.
Absolutely, TV's quite modern for me.
And you're doing that for the service of humanity and mankind. So what better?
Change is always good. There's always going to be change, and we've just got to go with the flow.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. You're both brilliant, resplendent. So thank you so much.
Pleasure. It's been really lovely to speak to you, Maria. It's been great. Really nice.
Yeah, really good.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, have a good evening, and I can't wait to read more from you and hear more from you.
Brilliant. You. Lovely. Thank you very much, Maria.
Have a lovely evening yourself.
I shall do. Blessings from home.
Bye.
Bless you too.
Thank you.
No, I think